Well, actually, there are a few minutes of delay. So
Oh, I see.
yeah, I think it's already on live. Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
おはようございます。こんにちは。かな。
日本はこんばんは。アメリカはおはようござい
こんばんは
ますですね。
か。5時です、こちらは。
朝5時。
朝5時です。
Early in the morning.
I know. So my brain might not be functional. Bear with me. We'll see. We're gonna start in 1 minute or so.
もういらっしゃってる方々がいるんですよね、も
います。いる
う。
みたいで
何人か。
す。大
あ
丈夫です。
りがとうございます。早い。
And Chris, what time is it?
Yeah, it's
In your place?
11 p.m. here. Yeah,
It's 11 p.m.
Past
Yeah.
bedtime.
it is. Yeah, everyone's asleep here.
Do all of your 4 kids went to bed
Yeah.
peacefully?
They all went to bed peacefully. I mean,
That's awesome.
Halloween's not quite yet. That
Right.
night will be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about the costume, and perhaps that could be a interesting topic before. So, well, it's already 5.
Shall we start?
Yeah, at least let's pull up the slides, opening slides. Let's see. Oh, right. And I'm gonna go to presentation mode. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, shall we start?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. チャンネルお越しくださった皆さんありがとうございます。今日はロケット科学 for Babies という絵本の作者で物理学者のクリス・フェリーさんと今回日本語版の翻訳を担当された NASA ジェット推進研究所の小野雅裕さんと一緒に私バイリンガルニュースのマミが絵本の紹介とお二人のバックグラウンドなどを伺っていきたいと思います。今回発売されたロケット科学 for Babies はクリスさんの大人気シリーズの最新作で相対性理論 for babies、量子力学 for babies、ニュートン力学 for babies っていった作品がいろいろあるんですよね。で、タイトルから分かるように大人にとっても大変難解な概念を赤ちゃん向けに紹介するという大変斬新な内容が
That's a
人気を呼んで
crazy idea, right? Like quantum
Yeah.
physics for babies. Sounds
I know.
fun and crazy. Yeah. But I love it.
Yeah. で、そう、Amazon の絵本ランキングでは、なんと今、全作品が上位に入っています。というわけで、まずはお二人に、簡単な自己紹介お願いしたいと思います。So, Chris, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Chris Ferrie. I'm an associate professor at the University of Technology in Sydney, Australia. If you can detect accents well, you'll recognize that I don't have an Australian accent. I'm originally from Canada, and I moved here about 7 years ago, I think, and now work in research in quantum computing. And sometime before I moved to Australia, I started writing children's books for my own kids, and I thought about putting them online, and they've become really popular since then.
すごい。シドニー工科大学で、クォンタムコンピューティングなどを教えられている准教授で、まずは自分のお子さんたちのために絵本をちょっと書いてオンラインで出してみたところ、大人気になったということで、もうすでに You've published like 100 books already, right? In 20 countries, 20 languages?
That's right. Yeah, there's a lot.
Wow.
I mean, to be honest, to publish them in a different language doesn't take much. That's why Hero's here. Hero does all the work.
ね、そうこれまでにもう100冊出されてて20カ国語に訳されているということなんですけど、今回日本語版の訳を担当されたヒロさん、自己紹介お願いします。
日本語で た方がいいかな？英語でやった方がいいかな？
日本語の方がいいですかね。
小野と言います。NASA のジェット推進研究所で、勤めていて、日頃は、火星ローバーのことが多いですね。自動運転の開発をしたりとか、あとは運用したりとか、あとは、未来の宇宙船のための、アルゴリズムを作ったりしてます。で、私生活では一人娘がいます。で、今回は娘のアドバイスをもらいながら訳しました。
そう、二人ともお子さんいらっしゃるということで、Chris, you have 4 kids, right?
That's right, yeah.
So you are ahead of me on both aspects, right? 4 kids and 100 books versus I only one and a few.
Yeah, well, maybe it's easier to write more books when you have more kids.
Yeah, absolutely. One kid is like, I don't know, 2,000 books writing or something. More than that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you must be so busy. I don't know how you
Yeah.
find time to write so many books.
Yeah, you know what? It is busy. I was up at 5 a.m. I had a meeting with the publisher, the American publisher, this morning at 5 a.m.
Wow.
and now it's 11 p.m. So
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it's busy. But yeah, I mean, life is short and I'm still young, so get as much work done as possible.
Wow, super parent. すごい。一人の子供でも私は結構いっぱいいっぱいなので、I have only one child and I'm exhausted, so I don't know how you do it.
Well, to be honest, having more kids is easier because they entertain each other. So, I mean, just today we were at the park and the kids for Halloween, they were all dressed up and playing. And once the other children left, I didn't have to entertain my kids because they all played together. So, yeah. And yeah, the oldest one looks after the youngest one. Yeah.
That's nice.
But they're going to create their own problems, right? They could fight or, I don't know, fight for parents. I don't know.
Yeah. The number of pairs of children increase quadratically. So the number of possible fights increases.
Oh my God.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a combination.
But you know, it's good too. They learn to negotiate and
That's true. That's very true.
How to deal with problems. Yeah.
確かにソーシャルスキル。
Once you have 3, you're outnumbered. So it's impossible. It's impossible to. There's always one that's missing. So yeah.
大変そう。まあ私自身も親になってから絵本を買う機会っていうのはすごくしょっちゅうあるんですけど、それで気づいたこととしてやっぱり中身を全部読んでから買いたいんですよね。普通の本だとネタバレとかになっちゃうから見たくないんですけど、so children's books are different from normal books because as a parent you want to see the whole thing before you decide to buy it, right? Just to make sure that it's nice
yeah,
and interesting for or like if it's interesting for your child. というわけでせっかくなのでお二人に実際に絵本の読み聞かせをお願いしたいと思います。Chris, could you read your book, please?
Yeah, sure. Let me share that. So
すごいね、さっき見せてもらったんだけど、そうすごいかっこいい表示の仕方。Really cool background.
Yeah, so I have to share it this way because I don't actually have a bookshelf, but I have a green screen. You see what happens when I have the actual when I have the actual book. Yeah, so we'll do it this way. Yeah, so all the books in the series start the same way. They start, this is a ball. And in this case, we have a ball and it's moving. So the arrow is showing this ball moving here to the left. And when things are moving, we can feel the air. It hits us in the face. It doesn't go through us. So the air can't go through the ball. It has to go around the ball. So the air hits us in the face when we're running or when we're on a swing or when we're on a bike, and that's the air hitting us and going around us. So this ball is changing the air. Now, we want to change the shape of the ball so it's not a round shape anymore. It looks more like, when I ask children, they tell me this looks like a raindrop. Although I have to remind them that raindrops are they're actually perfectly round, but we draw them this way. So if you turn your head, it kind of looks like a raindrop. And if we have a different shape, then the air is going to change the way it goes around, right? So we change the shape and we change the airflow. And if we change the angle, okay, so now we've changed the angle of it. What happens is the air, so you can see here, the air is deflected down. So it's not going around the shape in the same way. The air from the top is being deflected downward. So we draw this arrow and ask, if the air goes down, what happens to the shape? The shape has to go up. Okay? And in another book, we learn about Newton's third law, which is for every force, there is an equal force in the opposite direction. So in this case, we have an arrow going down and an arrow going up. So the force on the air is counteracted by a force on the shape. And that force is called lift. Okay? And this is actually not a raindrop, it's the shape of an airplane wing. So the ball, it has no lift. Throw a ball and it's going to fall to the ground, but the airplane wing has lift. So once it moves through the air, that force is lifting force is going to make it go up. But we need a way to make that wing go forward in the first place. So how do we make that wing go forward? Well, we can put it on a rocket ship. Now the ship is full of fuel, and there's a reason for that. If the fuel comes out of the ship, going backwards, so we have an arrow here showing the direction of the fuel, the force of the fuel, then that opposite force is going to push the rocket forward. Okay? So the fuel goes out, the rocket ship goes forward, and the faster the fuel goes out of the ship, the faster the ship will be forced forward. So what do? We make it explode as fast as we can out of the ship. And that forward force is called thrust. So we have lift and we have thrust. Those are the two main forces when we're talking about aerodynamics. And with lift and thrust, we can even go to the moon, and perhaps with Hero here, we should say that we can even go to Mars. So now
Yes.
you are a rocket scientist.
Yay! Awesome. So maybe このまま日本語版に移りま
やり
しょうかね。
ましょうか。
お願いします。
ち
ちょっと英語版と日本語版の違いにも注目していただいて。
クリスさんみたいにかっこいい背景が僕ねないんで、スクリーンショットそのままのアグリーなあれですけども。And I like the way that Chris read the book, where you explain things on top of what book says.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always I rarely read the words. Maybe the first time I read a book to my kids, I read the words. But after that, we discuss it.
Oh, I see. Okay, let me try that advice when I read it. Okay, switching to Japanese. そう、クリスさんが言ったように、このシリーズすべてボールから始まるんですよね。なので、日本語は他の村山さんの役と揃えて、丸いボールって見始めました。
かわいい。
丸いボールがあるね。ブーンって動き出したよ。あ、風が来た。でも風が来るけど、でも風はボールを通り抜けなんだよね。お化けじゃないからね。だから、避けていくんだよ。で、あれ飛ばした。ごめんなさい、飛ばしました。避けていくよ。変身。お尻をキュッ。なんか変な形になったね。あれこの形になったら、風の流れ方が変わったね。そしてググって上を向いたら、 風が下へ避けていった。で、空気が下に流れていくと、作用反作用の法則。で、ふわ、浮かんだね。この上向きの力を揚力って言うんだよ。よーく見るとこれ、実は飛行機の羽を横から見た形なんだ。丸い時は揚力は働かなくてボールは落ちちゃったけど、でも羽に変身したら揚力で空を飛べたよね。でも宇宙には空気がない。じゃあ宇宙を飛ぶにはどうしたらいいんだろうね。そうだ、ロケットに変身しちゃえ。燃料を満タンに詰め込んで、ゴーって燃料が後ろに飛び出すと、ビューンって前に飛んでいったよ。そして燃料がもっと速く飛んでいったら、ロケットはもっと速くなったね。ドッカーン、ビューン。この進む力を推力って言うんだ。揚力があれば空を飛べるし、推力があればお月様にも行けるね。もうあなたはロケット博士だね。おしまい。
Yay!
Yay! Did I do a good job?
Nice. You both have different styles, but it really shows how you communicate with your children. なんか普段からどういうふうにお子さんと接してるかっていうのが透けて見える感じですごい心が温まりました、本当に。
I think that's the way I read the book to my daughter.
That's so sweet. So, お二人にちょっとこの5本の話もしていただきたいし、いろいろ質問があるので、ちょっと早速伺っていきたいんですけれども、まずその物理学者という職業のクリスさんが、なぜ子供向けの絵本を作ろうと思ったのか、その背景をもうちょっと伺っていきたいと思います。So, I think you touched on this at the beginning, but could you let us know, could you tell us what inspired you to create children's books?
Sure. Yeah. So I started about 8 years ago. And at the time, my oldest daughter was in preschool. We just had our third child. And I had read, I remember Goodnight Moon was one that I had read probably 1,000 times. And so I was looking for other books, and in particular, some science books, or just generally nonfiction books for the new baby. And I couldn't find any. So I thought, well, I'll write my own science books. And then when I started to think about what sort of science topic I should write about, I thought, well, why don't I write about my own research, which is quantum physics? And when the title kind of popped into my head, I knew that, that at least that would sound interesting to people. People really kind of enjoyed it, and the feedback was really great. And so I started writing more and more books after that.
Why do you think there are not that many science books for toddlers or children?
I think it's because people think that there's a time in which you're supposed to introduce science to kids. There's when they think about the curriculum in schools, there's a certain age or grade level at which science is introduced, and then parents think that that's the appropriate age to introduce science to kids. But I like to think of kids are excellent scientists. They're like the best kind of scientists you can find. They're always out exploring, testing the boundaries and testing their ideas. And sometimes school kind of takes that away from them. And then we ask when we should reintroduce science instead of when we should introduce it. So I think, children are scientists, and from the feedback that I'm getting, it really resonates with a lot of kids.
確かにこの本も揚力とかこの専門用語みたいな単語、結構難しい単語出てくるんですけど、意外と子供って簡単難しいっていうのが、確かに今クリスさんがおっしゃったように、いつイントロデュースされたかによって私たちは勝手に決めちゃってるけど、意外と子供って難しい言葉でもすぐ覚えたりしますよね。
Yeah, I guess I agree. Because one of my policy of talking to my daughter is to answer every question without any exception. And, sometimes she asks stupid questions. Sometimes she asks good questions, right? Like, the good one that I've got, like the other day was like, why, the sky is red in the evening and in the morning, right? Which forced me to explain things like, how the light scatters around and how only the short wavelength, is scattered by little particles in the air as opposed to long wavelengths. And it's hard to explain those concepts, but I draw pictures and, use plain languages. Often she gets it.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising sometimes to us, right? Like how we sometimes think that certain things are too difficult for them, but then they actually can understand it with no problem.
So perhaps it's not about, what we're gonna teach that matters, the age. It's more like how we're gonna tell, right? Depending on age. So yeah, I really like Chris's thought that, perhaps we should not set up a curriculum and restrict ourselves from telling interesting concepts, that kind of keep kids away from it.
Yeah, I think if you show the covers of the books to children, they're not going to tell the difference between these books and other similar books for the same age. It's parents that look at a book like Rocket Science for Babies and think, oh, that's a weird topic, that's not an appropriate topic, or that's too complicated of a topic. But a child doesn't know that yet. They're not supposed that they don't know that they're supposed to be surprised by it, right? Maybe they like science, maybe they're interested in science, and so they'll pick up that book, or maybe they just like people reading books to them with excitement.
What would you like to tell the readers and their parents through this book?
I think that it's not so important that you take away facts as if you're going to pass a test when you're done. That's not the idea of the books. The books aren't like textbooks for babies and infants. It's about working together with your child to show that you're excited about science and that this is something that they can be excited about, and that should encourage them to ask more questions. And if you don't know the answer to those questions, it's okay to admit that you don't know, and there's the internet is an amazing resource to get questions answered. You can even send me an email if you have a question.
Yeah, そうですよね。その親がやっぱり興味を持ってるっていう姿を見るっていうのも大事ですもんね。その今クリスさんおっしゃったように、こういう量子力学とはこういうものですっていうふうに教科書的に教えるっていうよりは、こういうものがあるよ、面白いねみたいな、ふんわりとでもいいから、なんとなく科学っていう面白いものがある。この世にはなんとなく目には見えないけどワクワクするような好奇心をかき立てられるようなものがあるんだよって導入部分としてっていうことですもんね。先ほど読み聞かせで日本語と英語版で中身が若干文章の雰囲気が違ってたんですけども、ヒロさん、日本語にするときに気をつけたこととか難しかったポイントっていうのを教えてください。
Right. So, I read books both in Japanese. I mean, I read Japanese books and English books to my daughter, and I kind of start finding that there are some differences in the way that they tell a story, the way that they try to entertain kids, and particularly the Japanese language is rich in onomatopoeia, right? The word that imitates sounds like tokan or hue, or right. And that's really unique to Japanese. And my daughter used to love the books like Moko Moko, 谷川俊太郎さんのとか、だるまさんかとかね。And そうそう、だるまさんがビヨーンっていう。And so, yeah, so, and those really appeals to, like, when she was like 1 or 2. So I thought it's those simple sounds, right, that makes kids, get interested in the content. So I thought I can try that. And, basically I translated, loyally to what Chris wrote, because it's already very good, so I didn't want to just, mess up too much. But I injected many of those sound words, onomatopoeia, in the book, so that I thought that would be a good way to reach Japanese kids, try to grab Japanese kids' hearts. Hope it worked.
いや、大人もこう読み聞かせするときに擬音語が入ってると読み聞かせしやすいんですよね。
かもしれませんね。
とか言っとけば、こう、はって集中力をこう引き戻せるというか、
確かに。
最後までちゃんと集中して聞いてもらえるから、それはすごく面白いなと思って。まあ、あと、日本語版は前書きもね、すごく私は、感銘を受けたんですけど。
ありがとうございます。
それはどうしようかな。読んでのお楽しみってことにしておきましょうか。
そうですね。今日時間も。僕のブログかなんかに載ってるんで、もしよければ見ていてください。
So one question that popped up in my head when I read your series was like, how accurate do we need to be when we try to explain something so complicated to children? I think a lot of parents sort of wonder, yeah, like when a toddler asks you a complicated question.
Yeah, I think the important thing is to connect with them. So you have to relate the knowledge to what they already know. And obviously they're not going to have a degree in physics or engineering from a university. So, the detailed facts about aerodynamics aren't going to be even relevant to talk about. So you want to kind of connect it to their world, to things that they understand. And so that means it has to be quite simplified. But that doesn't mean it's not accurate, right? So the pictures in the book are overly simplified. You probably wouldn't want to design an actual rocket solely on the knowledge from the book, but the kind of general concepts are there. So that's the kind of the idea of the books, is just to pick a simple concept or a very small set of concepts and just give an idea how those concepts can lead to something big and exciting. Yeah.
What part was hardest for you in the process of simplifying things?
It really depends on the topic. It actually for aerodynamics, it's quite easy. I mean, normally you talk about four forces. I mean, sometimes it's even in like children's movies and cartoons. Like we mentioned in the book, lift, and then that lifts you up, and then thrust puts you forward. Drag is what kind of pulls you back, and then gravity, obviously, your weight pulls you down. So normally there's four forces, but four forces didn't fit into the book, so we only discussed two. But you can understand why things fly or why things float or leave the surface of the earth by just understanding these four fundamental kind of forces. So in a sense, that this topic was easy. Other topics, more abstract topics, are more difficult to kind of pin down. But this one was one of the books I found kind of easy.
Yeah, quantum physics for babies.
Yeah, that sounds. I don't even understand actually.
I don't either.
Yeah, well, that one was all about atoms. So I mean, atoms is something that you probably before you leave elementary school, you probably learn about it in a science class, I think, or just the idea that everything is made of of the same stuff, these atoms.
Mm.
And so in that book, it was about the simple model of an atom and how atoms take and give energy to their surroundings. And it happens one quantum at a time. So you put the quantum in the quantum physics that way.
Right. I felt a little nervous before I read that. Like, what if I don't understand any of this? It's supposed to be for babies, but it was easy to read and it was fun too.
Yeah,
So-
one of the most common comments I get from parents is, my kids seem to enjoy your book and they choose it for bedtime reading, but also I learned something from it. So that's
Yeah.
kind of good.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. 本当に親が読んでも学ぶところがあるというか、本当に自分でちゃんとわかるかなって見る前にちょっと私も緊張してしまったんですけど、本当に難解のテーマを、すごく簡単に簡潔にするって、クリスさんは今回の航空力学のはそこまで難しくなかったっておっしゃってますけど、それでもかなり難しいことだと思うので、本当にすごいの一言なんですけど。So what are the feedbacks you got from your own children on your books?
I don't make a big deal out of it. So they just see them as other books. I think they think every parent writes books, so they don't think it's so impressive. Now books like rocket science for babies, my oldest is 5 now, so she's kind of graduated beyond the baby book. So it's an interesting time, I think, in my writing career that the books that I'm writing aren't necessarily for my own kids anymore. So there was the brief period of time where my oldest would actually read the books to the youngest, and that was a very fun and cute time.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Your oldest read your book to your younger kids?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
小野さんはいかがですか？娘さんから。
So she's already 5, so she is not the age range, but she actually helped translating it, because when I did the first draft, I read it to her and asked for her feedback, which she was happy to provide. She often plays to be like a teacher to her stuffed animals, so I think she would love the idea of teaching her father about what to do. So she loved it. And actually I haven't got the hard copy yet, so I haven't read the book to her after I completed. I would love to see.
Wow. So I think we talked about what you do at the beginning, but could you please elaborate on what you do?
Sure. In my research at the University of Technology, Sydney, I have a research group, and it's quite abstract. I mean, we're mostly mathematicians, statisticians, and computer scientists. So we're not like the scientists that you might, if you Google scientists, you'll get someone in a lab coat with goggles and, liquids.
Well, I saw your picture with lab coat and signing the books, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I put on the show. Yeah.
Only for book signing?
Yeah. But mostly it's, there's a whiteboard and there's mathematical equations on the whiteboard. But we're trying to aid in the development of quantum technologies by learning how to describe and control quantum systems and engineered devices. Yeah.
Do your kids understand what you do for a living?
They know I work at a university and I drink lots of coffee.
You done a good job.
They come to the office. I mean, now during the pandemic, not so much anymore, but they would come to the office and they would erase my equations and draw pictures on the board. They meet my graduate students and it's at that level, it's just so far removed when you're talking to other academics. It's just a different language that you speak. Yeah.
It's such a like new field, right? Not many people understand what you're researching. So you're like the pioneer.
Yeah, quantum technology is quite new. So I think the first two commercial quantum computers one was installed in Germany and another was installed in Japan, just maybe less than a month ago.
Right.
So it's a very new field, and these are still kind of experimental devices, and we're not sure what we're going to learn scientifically, and we're not even sure what we can do from a commercial standpoint with these devices. So it's quite exciting. We stand to learn a lot of new stuff.
ね、量子コンピューターって本当に分かってる人この世で何人いるのかなっていう感じの本当に新しいし難解というかintuitive, it's not intuitive, right? Quantum physics.
Yeah, you're right, it's not. So I like to think about it in terms of information. So when you have something that's very well isolated, there's no information leaking out of it, there's a different set of rules, and that's the quantum mechanics rules. If any information leaks out, then it starts to be described by our usual laws of physics. And so something like me, there's lots of light in this room and it's bouncing off of me. And so information about, me, my voice, the color of my shirt and, the texture of my skin and hairs, all that information is just going everywhere. If you could somehow isolate that, then there'd be a different set of rules. And the reason that it's not intuitive is because intuition is derived from acquiring information about things. And so if you can't acquire information about it, then it's going to defy your intuition.
Yeah. いやもうこの話してるとこっからまた2時間ぐらいけどit feels like I would have millions of questions and we can go on for another 2 hours and you're gonna have to sleep. So let's move on. And ヒロさん、お仕事の話を教えてください。
Sure. So as I said before, I work at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and NASA has 10 centers, but JPL is basically in charge of uncrewed mission, meaning that we were sending robots to other bodies in solar system, like Mars or Venus or Saturn, Neptune. And for now, at least, the focus of our exploration is Mars. So naturally, I am, a part of that venture. And my day job right now involves, going to the control room and, listen to the signals coming back from the rover and analyze it, making sure that everything's okay, making sure that the rover does not hit the rock or, and also do some, development of, writing a code for the analysis. Previously, I developed the software that is on the rover to drive itself. Rover is a self-driving vehicle on Mars. Actually, the fun fact is that we've been driving on Mars autonomously before we started driving autonomously on Earth, right? So anyways, and that's half of my job. And the other is more like a research in a sense that is closer to, academia, although it's not really like it, basically creating and perhaps prototyping and testing the new ideas, new ways of driving future spacecrafts.
Mm.
In my case, in a more automated manner, such that, humans doesn't have to, tell everything about what to do to the rover or spacecraft. Rather, a spacecraft gonna think by itself and judge by itself what to do. Because, if you go further in space, where it takes more time for the signal to come back, perhaps communication might not be available, like the backside of the moon. The robots has to think itself, and that's the only way we can, push out our frontier, right? So, yeah, that's my job.
Wow. もうパーシーの話の時点ですごいけど、それが half of my job っていうこと自体がびっくりすぎるんですけど。パーシーが走ってるのはヒロさんのおかげっていう。
Can I ask you a question here?
Please.
When you listen to the signals from the rover, do you have a picture in your mind of the rover?
So, I said listen, but of course we do not literally listen to the signals, right? That's kind of way that I explained to my daughter. I'm going to NASA today to listen to what rover says, but of course the rover does not talk, and there's a multiple layers of signal processing. So the raw data arrives at the our facility, but that's completely ununderstandable to humans. And then there are the first layer of software that decodes it to kind of raw files. But then there are many more processes to turn it to charts or images, or we have a program that automatically goes over all the data and spits out, present it in a table format. But still, one of our job is that, because data does not tell everything. It's not like, someone else is holding camera in front of the rover to document everything, right? So somehow we have to reconstruct the chain of events that happen on Mars based on those telemetries, graphs, or the tables. And particularly when we know something bad happens, we have to understand what's going on. And that's the fun part, but also the difficult part. So yeah, great question.
I think, including myself, a lot of people think of Percy as something more like a living thing that we love, moving around on Mars together with the helicopter.
Oh yeah, you know about Haley. Yeah, so Percy brought a friend, Ingenuity, and the Haley was supposed to live only for 30 days, but actually, it lives much longer. It's still going on. So that's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna go to the next question. So as a parent, why do you think science is important, and how do you guide your children to get interested in science?
Yeah, so I guess science is important because it gives us a way to test and understand the world. So it's the best way that we've figured out how to do that. And especially today, in the age of misinformation, having a scientific mindset is incredibly important.
Right.
And there's all sorts of different ways to encourage science, scientific thinking or an interest in science in kids. And I think one of the bad ways is to try to convey to kids that science is about facts, like lists of facts, that's not what it's about. It's a way of thinking about the world, a way of trying to get at the truth. It's not the list of things that are true. And to encourage that means to encourage your kids to investigate and come up with answers on their own, and tell them it's okay when they're wrong, and try to revise when they're wrong, rather than say, you're definitely wrong and here's the actual fact. It's better to encourage them to try to discover those things on their own.
It's important for them to come up with questions, right? It feels like in the education I received, it felt like I didn't have any questions and they just tell me all the answers. And so, I didn't really understand what these answers are for and why I need to memorize them.
Right. That's a classic. I don't know if that happens in with Japanese students, but there's a classic thing in Western schools where kids ask, when am I ever going to use this?
I guess I'm going off topic, but I think Japanese education hasn't changed for, I don't know, decades, because in a science classroom, we learn like what's called 天秤ばかりってなんて言うんだろう。Do you know the like 100-year-old device to measure the weight? You have two plates. What is it called?
Yeah, scale. A scale.
Scale. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you scale? In the laboratory, no one uses it, right? And we have to memorize the procedure, protocols, and I don't think that's not the way that we should teach science.
Yeah, いや、本当にそうですよね。多分、I think it's not just in Japan, as Chris said. I think it's happening in a lot of countries. But have you noticed any differences in science education from when we were children? Like when you hear, when you talk to your kids and when they tell you what they learned in school?
I think a little bit. Perhaps there's a focus on the acronym that's popular now is called STEM.
Right.
So it's science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Sometimes it's STEAM with arts, and sometimes it's even STREAM with reading and arts in there. But the idea is to really kind of think about this, big problems in an integrated way. And it's a real challenge. And I think the main challenge is that it's difficult to assess students when they have open-ended tasks. So the reason that we love tests with true answers is because then we can give the test to a whole bunch of kids and it's really easy to mark them and compare them.
Yeah.
And breaking away from that is extremely difficult. So that aspect of schooling hasn't changed since schooling began, which isn't that old, maybe like 70 years ago, having the idea of state-sponsored education. It's just so hard, this problem of assessing kids fairly, that the idea of creating like a standardized test is hard to break away from. So those aspects I don't think have changed since when we were in school. Yeah. But these unique programs like STEM programs, I don't think that those are really new.
Perhaps to be fair, I harshly criticize Japanese education, but I think, overall, we should also acknowledge what this public education did. Because, one thing I wrote about in my preface in the Japanese version is about fling effect. The phenomena that people's IQ has been continuously rising over 100 years and in a surprisingly fast rate, so that if you transport a kid, average kid 100 years back, then he or she going to be top 2%. And it is largely attributed to schools, educations. So, I guess overall, there are, extreme opinions these days, on the news where, hey, education is a mess, we should stop. Everything gonna be, can be covered by internet. I don't agree with that. Still, overall, education is doing much more good than harm. But having said that, I totally agree with you, Chris. Still, the way that we are teaching kids has not been optimized, particularly the part that you said, it's basically designed to be easy to test rather than, you mentioned mindset, science is more about, teaching mindset rather than knowledge. So there are more rooms for improvement, which in turn, I think means that there are more room for improvements for kids to be smarter than our generations.
Mm. Yeah, I like the preface. I like the positivity. I guess as a parent, I tend to feel like, I don't know, wanting a rapid improvement in education or something, but I guess that's not easy anyway. So yeah, I really like the preface because we do need to look at positive side of things. And it is true that, they educate, like what I know now from, if you compare to what my grandma knows, there's a huge difference in how much information she was able to get when she was younger. So
yeah, I like the maybe part of my inspiration comes from the second verse of What a Wonderful World. What's it? I hear babies cry and what is it? La, la, la. They will learn much more than I'll ever know.
yeah, that's the spirit, right?
Yeah, that's the spirit.
And the people before us didn't have Chris's books, so
there you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
We didn't have them, but our kids do. So
you observe the jumping IQ of the kids born around 2015.
Yeah.
Thanks for your books, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the in 15 years the cohort of a whole bunch of kids that want to go into quantum physics and rocket science.
Oh yeah.
At university, because they started from when they were 1 year old.
Yeah. ね、でも何が身近かってやっぱり絵本で読んでたとかテレビで見たとかそういう簡単なところからやっぱ入っていくと思うので、こういう絵本があるのとないのでは全然多分違いますよね。質問ちょっともしある方いれば、is there a comment section?
Yeah, actually, not sure if you can. Yeah, actually, if you open the YouTube and there
okay.
are chat, I think you can see it. And actually, there are a lot of fans, Mami. Your fans.
Hi. Hi, everybody. 質問ある方はぜひこの機会に質問していただけるとまだちょっと時間あるのでお答えできるかなと思います。
Mami, were you able to open the YouTube and find the chat, or should I pick it up? Actually, there are not much questions yet.
You said there's a time lag, right?
Yeah, perhaps could be a minute or two.
Okay. Where is the link here? Oh, there it is.
You found it.
あ、そうだ。結構本当にラグがあるんだ。I don't know how to look at the people's comments.
So I can see the chat box right to the main screen. I mean, if someone posts a question, I can pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to see them.
質問したいけど会話についていけないっていうもの。そっか、申し訳ないですね。ちょっとびっくりしました。
Someone said they wanted to ask a question, but they couldn't really keep up with the conversation.
Yeah, there's one question. 小野さんの後ろのホワイトボードはパーシーですよ、これね。
Oh, the whiteboard.
Yeah, I mean, 日本語にスイッチした方がいいかな。ホワイトボードは普段の職業でなんだろう、会話だけだとアイディア伝えられないんで、こうやって後ろにホワイトボードを書いて、昨日ローバーの研究というか、アイディア出しを同様ってあったんで、こんなのがあるんです。パーシーとは限らない未来のローバーですね。
かっこいい。
Yeah. I find it so difficult to switch between two languages. I guess, it takes me like 20 seconds or so. Yeah. Mami, you are doing a great job. I
Thank
can't
you.
understand how you're doing that.
It's not really, I don't know. It is pretty tiring for your brain, but I guess I got used to it.
Yeah, actually, I'm going totally off topic while waiting for the questions. But I read a book about dolphins for my daughter. She got it. I think that's one of the National Geo Kids book. And interesting, I actually learned a lot when reading those books for my daughter. But one thing I learned from that dolphin book was that when dolphins sleep, they only sleep half hemisphere of their brain, because otherwise they're gonna keep swimming. So they put the left half of their brain first, while the right half of the brain keeps control of the body and switches around, right? So that was amazing. And I hope I could do that, like completely separating my brain into Japanese hemisphere and English hemisphere so that I can switch easily. I don't know if that's how, but.
I see a good question here. I can see questions now.
Yeah, please.
So Chris, you have a lot of series in the book. How do you choose the theme?
So when I first started, I chose topics that I was interested in, first of all. And I also wanted to pick topics that I suspected people thought were really complicated. So I wanted to, really focus on this idea that, the most complicated topics aren't just reserved for people with PhDs, but they can be for everyone. So I chose like really kind of complex sounding topics and made the books out of those. And later on, with the help of the publisher, once the publisher got on board, we worked together with the marketing team to see what people were most interested in, and we kind of built the series like that.
And someone else is asking, are you interested in writing a picture book about face separation? I'm a scientist as well, and I want to read a book about it.
Yeah, I get about once a week, I get a message from other scientists asking about their writing books about their area of expertise. I would really love to write about every topic. The problem is that publishing books is really difficult, especially, I can't speak entirely for the publisher, but I know that they can't publish every book on every topic because it's so expensive to make, and they have to be assured that they're going to be able to print many thousands of copies, and
they have to be profitable.
Yeah. So and also baby books. I'm not sure globally what it's like, but in America, they're very cheap relative to how much they cost to produce. Like these, like you can see that this book, it's got really thick cardboard pages, which is not as simple to print as other books. So that means that the publisher doesn't make a lot of money when these books are sold. So they need to be sure that it's going to sell a lot of copies. And the other thing is, ebooks don't really work because people don't want to read books to their children on electronic devices generally. And a lot of children's books are sold as gifts, so people don't want to give digital gifts. Not yet anyway. But maybe one day we'll be able to write on every topic. But you can submit on the publisher's website, the publisher's source books. You can submit on their website ideas, and they go through all of the ideas and choose the best ones. Yeah.
じゃあなんかリクエストがあったら出版社に送るとそこで検討してもらえるかもしれない。ちょっと今すごいリアルなね、背景も教えていただきましたけれども、確かに子供の本だとボードブックって言って硬いね本なので作るのにもお金がかかるし、こうテーマを選ぶのもね、そういうちょっと商業的な部分も考えないといけないという。Another question. Oh, I think it's because you have bookshelf in your background, both of you. What kind of books do you have?
Oh no, Chris's background is not the real one.
Yeah. そう、実はね、
It's a green
グリーン
screen.
スクリーン。そう。
What books do I have? There are many, but I mean, to pick up a few, I like, of course, Carl Sagan, so Cosmos. That's very good. Yeah, my reason, I mean, I wrote about the Flynn effect. That's also coming from Steven Pinker's, this one, The Better Angels of Our Nature. This was really inspiring. On the fiction side, on English, yeah, of course, there's Martian. Oh, and
Martian.
Yeah, totally different taste. And of Green Gables, 赤毛のアンかな。
意外。
Yeah, because when I wrote my previous book, that was for 12-year-old. So to make a character. For Japanese side, there are a lot, but my favorite authors are, one is 遠藤周作。遠藤周作とね、あと、三島由紀夫とかが好きかな。
なるほど。
あとは、あと山ほどありますけど、このところにしときましょうか。
人の本棚見るのって楽しいですよね。
山ほど
It's always fun to look at other people's bookshelves. Another question. Oh, wow. So what made you interested in your field?
Me or Chris?
Both of you, yeah.
Go ahead, Hiro.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I've been space kid since little, right? When I was 5, my father bought a telescope, and that was fascinating, right? You can see the ring of Saturn and craters of the moon. By the way, that's what I do for my daughter, although I'm not sure if she's inspired as much as I did. And when I was 6, I saw, NASA's spacecraft Voyager 2 went to Neptune on TV, of course, with my father. He liked space and he was excited about it. So I think, I received, so I think, the way that I got interested was not just that, the space or science and technology itself talked to me, but also my father was highly excited about those. And it was through his passion or through his excitement that I learned that, science and technology is something that is interesting.
What about you, Chris?
I think I came through mathematics. I was always interested in mathematics. When I was younger, I liked solving math problems and doing fast arithmetic and that sort of thing in school. And then I went through school taking all the math classes that I could, and eventually became really attracted to the idea that you could use math to solve problems, to solve real world challenges. And in university, I used mathematics to solve physics problems. So I had a dual degree in mathematics and physics. And then, it just happened that I had a lecturer at university that was doing research in quantum physics and did some research projects for them while I was an undergraduate student. And I thought that was really interesting, and I kind of stayed in that field. So it was a bit serendipitous, and it wasn't planned. And the thread that kind of connects it all is just mathematics.
なんかさっきのヒロさんのお話聞いてて思ったのが、やっぱり今回の配信の最初の方にも出てきましたけど、やっぱりその大人がどれだけ興奮している姿を見るか、で結構すごいインパクトがあるなと思って、So I was watching SpaceX launch for Inspiration 4 the other day, and I was so excited, and I was watching the video over and over, and I was showing my son, and he's 3, so he can't possibly fully understand what's going on. But because he sees me being so excited, that was exciting him.
Yeah.
And he was like, "This is so cool." So that actually makes a lot of difference, right? I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. He sees his mom.
Yeah, you see it with sports teams all the time, right? Why would a children like a particular sports team? It's only because their parents like it.
That's so true. That's
yeah.
so true.
But if you read science books with excitement, then your kids will like science. It's just, a fact, right? If you only read books about lions, then eventually they'll have a room full of stuffed lions because you'll think that they're interested in lions, but it was only because you were excited about reading books about lions. So yeah, they really follow and learn. And also, I guess one of the most important things about that is if you show any sort of apprehension when you're faced with challenges, then the children will see that. So I see it all the time, and is parents, they have some bad experience with math or science when they were kids, and the discussions that they have, or the attitudes that they have, or just the feelings that they show when they hear about it, that gets conveyed to the children, and it really affects their attitude towards it.
Right. I feel that a lot with insects. A lot of grown-ups casually react like, oh no, that's so gross, it's so scary. And
yeah,
then kids
my wife
actually,
does that actually.
yeah, kids really copy that. So I really don't like insects, but I pretend like I love them.
Oh wow, you're doing a good job.
It's really hard. But yeah, so I guess I would have to keep that attitude with math as well. I was never really good at it, but for my son, I guess I'll pretend.
Don't say that to him.
Yeah, I won't. I guess Hiro-san will have to go make breakfast for his daughter.
Yeah, I think I can stay for 5 more minutes or so. If there are more questions.
I think maybe one last question. 2人が子育てで大事にしていること。So what's the most important thing in parenting for you?
Good question. I think, there are so many things, but I'm not sure if I'm doing good or not, but I try to listen to what she says and try to encourage her to speak, because you often your brain is often occupied about how to teach, how to guide, how to do something for her. But I think it's something that is equally important for her is to have her own will and speak up what she thinks and start up the communication, ask good questions. So, I tend to talk a lot. My wife talks more, but I try to kind of control myself, restrict myself a little bit, particularly when my daughter seems wanting to speak up, and I let her speak as much as she wants. And also, I never try to, say, you speak too much, just, try to encourage her to speak whenever she can.
How about you, Chris?
I think for my children, it's freedom to make their own choices and really embrace their agency, that they control their body, they make their own choices, and it's not about having a parent or an adult tell you what you need to do next, or what the rules are. So it's something that we were forced, I think, as I said earlier, that we were forced to learn once we had 3 kids, and now that we have 4, there's an amazing power of I'll say ignoring your kids, but letting them just be on their own, right? Letting them be bored and figure out how to solve that problem on their own without YouTube. No YouTube.
Right.
So, go outside and just, you're free. Do whatever you want to do outside, and come back an hour later, come back for dinner. And I think that's something that over the generations is definitely changing. That when we were the age of my kids at 10 and 11, we had a much different life than kids that are 10 or 11 today. And if you keep going back, you see that kids tend to have more and more freedom as you go back into the past. And that maybe that's not entirely the one answer that solves everything, but I think to a small extent, that's one thing that children are missing that they need to experience.
Yeah, let them be bored is something I've been learning to do. It's something that I need to keep reminding myself, right? Because I try to entertain him all the time, and I guess a lot of parents go through the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went through it when we had one child. We were, you're when they're really young, you're the only friend, right? You're the only other person.
Yeah.
And so you feel it's your responsibility to keep them entertained and engaged. But yeah, it's much easier when you have 4.
True. いや、本当にそう。本当にこれは意識しないと、すぐエンターテインしようとしちゃうっていう問題があって、いろんな人が共感できるんじゃないかなと思いますけれども。Yeah, so I guess, well, thank you for good questions, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mary.
everyone.
Thank you for cool stories and everything. And the books are amazing. So, ぜひ日本語版、英語版どっちもAmazon でも本屋さんでもあると思うので、興味ある方はチェックしてみてください。So, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was so
Hey,
exciting
you want to do
to
this
talk to you.
one slide advertisement?
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, let's
そう
do
だ、
it.
宣
Since
伝
we
の
have,
スライド。
yeah,
忘れてた。
yeah, the conversation was so interesting that I almost forgot this is a book event. But, hey, Chris,
Yeah,
this is
sure.
yours.
Yeah. So there's many books in the series published by Sourcebooks in the US, and I think we're at four now translated to Japanese.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's an adult nonfiction book that hasn't been translated yet, but maybe Hiro, you want to consult with the publisher on that?
Sure.
Yeah, so that one was just released this month.
Hey, you have like blockchain or Bayesian probability for babies? Wow.
Yeah.
Actually, the English is not complicated. So, if you're a parent learning English,
that's true.
I guess you could read it to your children easily. So, 英語勉強してる人、親が英語勉強してる人でも、英語版はそんなに難しくない。Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It reminds me of a funny story. One of the earliest emails I received from someone was an English teacher in Tokyo that said he was using my books to teach English to teenagers in Japan.
Yeah, that's perfect though, right?
Actually, there was a comment on the chat suggesting that it would be good to have a book that has both languages together.
Oh, like bilingual version.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be good. ね、確かにいいアイディア。そう、英語そんなに難しくないので、英語勉強してる親の方も、自分の子供に読み聞かせるときに英語版も結構いいかもしれないです。Yep. Should we go to the next one? Okay.
Yeah, my ones. I haven't written 100 books. I only wrote 3. So I'm far behind Chris. Yeah. 日本語にスイッチしましょうか。そう、僕クリスが100冊書いたって言ったけど、僕はまだ3冊ですけども、本出してます。で、一番左の本がだいたい ティーンネイジャー向けの子供向けの本かな。宇宙の本で、真ん中は大人向け。で、右が、宇宙の本ではないんですけども、将来海外に出たいなって思ってるような若者向けの本です。
うん、
Twitter とかメルマガなんかもあるんで、ぜひよろしくお願いします。
皆さんぜひチェックしてみてください。
そして、マミさん。
はい、バイリンガルニュース、ぜひよろしくお願いします。
ぜひ。
はい、多分、そうですね。大丈夫です。
僕も
公式アプリもあるので。
僕もいつか
小野さんにも
登場するということをさっき
ぜひ
約束しちゃって。
そう小野さんにもちょっとゲストでこれは出ていただかなければ
いやー、
ならない。
本当今回の恩返しをしなくては。
ありがとうございます。いや、もうすでにJPL から2人
そう、大丸くん
ゲストで出て
とゆうくんかな。
そうです。出ていただいてる
ね
ので、
え。
恩返しどころかこちらがもうお返ししてもしきれないぐらいの状態ではあるんですけれども、
いえいえいえいえ。
ぜひよろしくお願いします。
アプリなんかもあるんですね。すごいですね。
そうなんです。公式アプリでクイズみたいに英語を勉強する機能とかもあるので、ぜひ
いやー、
皆さん
素晴らしい。
Yeah, so
All right. So I got to go to breakfast.
yeah.
My princess is waking up soon.
Yeah,
And today is the Halloween party at school for my daughter, so she's gonna be excited.
it's gonna be exciting
Yeah,
for all the kids.
for all the kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have 4 kids, it feels like it's gonna be hard to prepare too, but
You just don't prepare anymore. Embrace the chaos.
good strategy. Okay, so ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございまし
この辺で
た。
締めましょうかね。
Thank you very much, Chris.
Bye.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mami. All right. Bye. Bye, everyone. Hold on a sec. I have to turn off.